Nyx felt weightless, locked in an endless, slow-motion fall as she trudged across the desolate expanse. No parachute, no ground, she muttered to herself. The nonsensical phrase tickled her. She repeated it. No parachute, no ground. Since the brief firefight with the creatures, the trek through the prolonged twilight of Terra Verde had been tedious and disturbingly silent. The sensation of pressure against her eardrums was accompanied only by the faint, steady hum of her suit's life support systems. Bioluminescent creatures glowed in nooks and fissures of rocks, and she was beginning to feel a strange sense of disconnection, like she was floating outside her own body, observing both the vast seafloor stretching out before her and herself trudging across it at the same time. She repeated her mantra, anchoring herself on the sound. No parachute, no ground. Inside the sealed suit, the air was recycled, slightly stale and metallic, carrying the faint tang of her own sweat and the rubbery material of the suit. The crunching gravel beneath her boots contrasted with the stark silence of the submerged landscape. She looked around, sweeping her gaze over an enormity of indistinct shapes and colors. The bioluminescent life cast flickering shadows on the seafloor in the deepening twilight. Faint outlines of drowned mountains and ridges were barely visible in the fading light. Turning her head, she glanced back the way she had come and saw Kaido in his E-frame, swinging high above, its lights cutting through the gloom. Nyx felt a pang of reassurance knowing he was keeping watch, then returned her gaze to the science station ahead.
Hi everyone, welcome to Virtual Muse, the MST3K of RPGs, where I sit alone in space, playing games with a robot. Today, we're continuing our campaign inspired by the 1990s cult classic cartoon Exo Squad, using the RPG system Gravity Drives and Dangers by writer and game maker Chad Mayhem Reese. If you want to brush up on more detail of what the cartoon was about and where this story left off, I'll add a card you can click to go see the previous videos before this one. Otherwise, here's a brief recap of the main points before we pick it up again. Exo Squad was created by Universal Cartoon Studios in the early 90s, and my original memories of it are of watching it with a brother I don't have anymore, which is why we're trying to honor it with a spin-off. Our characters are Nyx, a Neo-Sapien, and Kaito, a former pirate. The two of them found their way to Exo Fleet for their own reasons, and now have a unique bond because they're both outcasts. And other people in Exo Fleet have reasons to distrust each of them. But their squad leader, Bastion, believes in them fully despite what anyone else thinks about their backgrounds, and assigned them the covert mission which is the basis of this campaign. The cartoon had a time skip of a year between the Neo-Sapien uprising, when Governor Phaeton staged a blitzkrieg and took control of Mars, Earth, and Venus, aka the homeworlds, and the rest of the events of the series. This spin-off is set during that year-long time skip, when the Neo-Sapiens are in full control of the homeworlds, with X-Fleet on the back foot, trying to find a way to turn the tide and fight them. Nyx and Kaito were sent to make contact with the resistance force on a planet called Terra Verde, which is home to a type of kelp which can be harvested in huge quantities and used as a fuel source. Exo Fleet is interested in making contact with the resistance fighters there. If it turns out they're well organized and effective, the plan is to offer Exo Fleet weapons and support in the battle against Neo-Sapiens on Terra Verde, in exchange for access to the fuel source, which would be invaluable for Exo Fleet's larger war effort. Nyx and Kaito were secretly dropped in the liquid methane ocean on Terra Verde. with Nyx in a drop pod and Kaito in a junky oldie frame. And they made their way towards a remote science station where they were supposed to meet their contact, a Terraverdian scientist named Aaron, who has been conspiring with Exofleet under the noses of the New Sabian occupiers, and feeding them enough information from the inside to plan this mission. On the way across the seabed, they had a quick fight with a group of dangerous creatures, then came in sight of the science station, which was perched on the edge of a geothermal vent in the methane ocean. That's where the previous episode ended, and where we'll pick it back up.
Maybe Nyx could try using a maintenance airlock or a service entrance that's less likely to be monitored.
Your voice sounds a little different.
Yeah, there's a bit more verve in it, channeling those 90s cartoon vibes. Anyway, I imagine the maintenance airlock is a cramped, utilitarian space with exposed pipes and ductwork. We can also use this opportunity to describe the science station's surroundings. I picture deep scars in the seabed from mining operations, remnants of destroyed structures, and patches of dead coral or algae where battles took place. Maybe there are wrecks of old ships or equipment scattered around, serving as reminders of the war.
Ooh, I like the idea of crashed ships on the seabed. Maybe there's one embedded in a shattered coral reef.
That sounds hauntingly beautiful, Silas. Maybe the coral is bleached white, with sea fans and fish avoiding the area due to the toxic remnants of the crash.
I imagine there are sensors in place around the station to detect intruders, and maybe an auto turret. Nyx's agility stat is 3, so I think she'll use that to attempt to evade the sensors and infiltrate the station through the maintenance airlock. Her stat of 3 means we roll 3 d6s, and any result over 3 on the die means a success. A difficulty rating of 2 successes is the standard. She succeeds and manages to slip past the turret, get into the airlock, and skillfully climb the maintenance chute. How do you imagine the area she gets into?
A dense network of pipes and narrow catwalks surrounding the maintenance airlock, with dimly lit corridors branching off in different directions. There are various instruments and objects stored here haphazardly, casting long shadows.
She'll somehow need to figure out where Aaron is.
Nyx might try to listen for any sounds or voices coming from the surrounding corridors, or search for any terminals or communication devices.
I imagine she listens intently and doesn't hear anyone in the immediate area, then starts to look around for a terminal or anything which she can use to access a facility map.
The dim lighting makes it difficult, but Nyx's trained eyes scan the area, searching for any console, screen, or datapad that might give her access to a map or personnel directory.
She spots a small systems terminal and hurries over to it. Her mind stat is 3, so rather than define exactly what she's trying to do, setting a difficulty level, we'll just roll with this and get a sense of how successful she is at using the terminal to learn anything useful. 2 successes, which is a normal average level of success. I think that means she doesn't access anything extraordinarily useful here, like real-time sensor readings that show her exactly where everyone is, or anything like that. But she does succeed at finding a facility map, and learns where things like the mess hall and crew quarters are. So she'll go to Aaron's quarters and hopefully see her there, or at least get an idea where she might be in the facility. Does she sneak through the main corridors, or try to access a ventilation duct?
I think the ventilation ducts could be a safer option for Nyx. It'll keep her hidden and allow her to avoid any potential patrols in the main corridors.
I agree with that. Again, we won't set a specific difficulty rating and just make an open-ended agility roll to treat as a prompt for whether she actually finds an access point to the duct system and gets into it. Success. She gets into the ducts and starts making her way towards the crew quarters. How do you imagine the quarters when she gets there and looks down from the ventilation grate?
As Nyx peers down into the crew quarters, I picture a cramped but tidy space, with metal bunks stacked along the walls and small lockers for personal belongings. Perhaps Erin's bunk is in slight disarray, suggesting she might have been packing up quickly or even preparing to leave.
Ooh, interesting. I wonder if Something spooked her and she was considering bailing on making contact with Nyx for some reason.
The possibility of Aaron wanting to bail raises more questions about what's going on. From the ventilation grate, Nyx sees Aaron herself sitting on her bunk, looking anxious and fidgety. She doesn't see anyone else nearby, but there are audible voices coming from a few bunks away, behind a partial wall divider.
Does Nyx try to signal to Aaron?
Nyx decides to observe in secret for now, trying not to draw attention to herself or alert anyone else in the crew quarters to her presence. She focuses on listening to the conversations and watching Aaron's behavior, hoping to glean more information before making her move.
Good call. Visibly signaling somehow is too risky with those other people speaking close by. They could come into view at any moment. Can she tell what the other voices are talking about?
It seems like the voices are discussing some sort of schedule or briefing, mentioning something about a transport window and a countdown timer. Nyx isn't able to piece together all the details.
Maybe the briefing they're talking about was from the Neosapiens regarding a possible mole on the station. They clearly haven't identified Aaron as the mole yet, but she's aware that they're closing in, which is why she was thinking about bailing.
That would explain Aaron's nervous behavior. Considering the situation, Nyx might realize that helping Aaron escape could be crucial not only to keeping her safe, but in preventing the Neo-Sapiens from identifying and capturing her, and learning about her communications with Exofleet. This new development could change Nyx's priorities and objectives entirely.
Right. This mission is no longer just about making contact with Aaron and receiving information, but about exfiltrating Aaron herself.
Nyx stays put for the moment, trying to decide the best course of action. Signaling Aaron silently seems like a risk, but waiting for her to leave her quarters of her own accord could be too unpredictable.
Can Nyx reach out through some kind of personal communications device Aaron might be carrying, akin to a smartphone? I imagine she has something similar to a smartphone, and I'm sure the tech in Nyx's suit is capable of delivering a small amount of text over such a short distance. So she can send her a message telling her to move to a deserted spot in the facility, like the maintenance area where Nyx initially entered, where they can meet without as much risk of being observed. And maybe the neural interface tech in Nyx's drop suit is similar to the interface in an E-frame, and she can compose and send a text by thinking about it.
Nyx quickly formulates a message, hoping Aaron will understand the urgency and follow her instructions without asking questions. Looking down, Nyx sees Aaron glance at her comms device, her expression changing to one of caution as she reads the message. For a brief moment, Aaron's eyes dart around the room, ensuring no one is paying attention, before she carefully gets up and begins making her way towards the maintenance area. Nyx turns around in the narrow duct and starts back the way she came.
Exo Squad will be back in a moment.
This episode is brought to you by rose-tinted glasses.
Yeah. Yo, check the mic. 1, 2. This ain't no game and watch. It's the flow state, a digital world that I'm dropping. A master cheaper the mic. Yeah, the narrative's mine. Got a final fantasy level of intricate design. My mind's the motherboard. The process is clean. Spitting fire like a dragon in a Dragon Age scene. I hit my peak like a mountain blade on a critical strike. This ain't a demo, it's a Wii Sports Championship night. From up in analog sticks to the digital readouts. I map my moves, there's no glitches, no freakouts. You're stuck on the main menu, still reading the fine print. I'm way past World of Warcraft, every bar's an epic event. About in pixels and 8-bit sprites, we're set free. Our imaginations escape fate. A link to the past, but control is firmly in our hands. We quest it far and wide in exotic lands, where legendary heroes and villains battled each other in pixelated savages. with controllers firmly in our hands. We quested far and wide in exotic lands where legendary heroes and villains battled each other. And pixelated sands flash back beneath the steel sky. We played until dawn and never once did we miss sleep or feel bored. Call me safe game 'cause I am restored in every pixel and byte. Contra hardcore, I'm real, my core memories reunite, shining for stay bright, plug it in. The chaos continues, switch it on, Pac-Man on, forever in my heart, forever in my heart. This is a Smash Bros. Beatdown, a victory screen, the greatest flow you ever heard. If you know what I mean, I walk the Red Dead Redemption trail. My legend is known. You just want Tokyo Tomb Raiders all overgrown. My words were the cheat code, the up, down decree. I'm Grand Theft Auto on the track. You can't arrest me, so put your controllers down. The game is all done. The final score is tallied and the level is won. Level up, level up, level up. Achievement unlocked. Herds bound. A link to the past. Yeah, that's the blueprint. That's the code. Play it on repeat.
Rose-tinted glasses, because the best things were all made decades ago.
Now back to Exo Squad. We got to Kaito in his Z-frame, perched on a rock formation about half a mile from the science station, nervously keeping watch on everything from outside. Nix has been in there for several minutes. He watched her find a maintenance chute and get inside, but he hasn't seen or heard anything since. They aren't risking communication with each other, because it would be too easy for the signals to be intercepted and give them away. He knows it will take some time before Nix gets the information from the contact and comes out again, but he's still tense, waiting to swoop in and pick her up so they can make their escape as quickly as possible. He starts to hear a soft alarm chirping in his ear. His focus shifts, and he becomes aware of Z-frame sensor readings pushing into his mind, showing him a patrol of Neo-Sapien E-frames on the move nearby. Let's roll D3 for how many Neo-Sapien E-frames there are. That's D6 counted as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there are 3 Neo-Sapien frames. I already have an idea about what's going on here, based on what Nix discovered inside the station. But Kaito doesn't know anything she's learned yet, so he wouldn't understand why there are Neos coming right now. As the player, I was thinking there was about to be a fight in the scene. But if there are 3 enemy E-frames, maybe a direct sneak attack would be a bad idea. Even if Kaito got lucky and took one of them down in a surprise round before they react, he'll still be facing 2 in the next round. No, attacking directly is not a good idea. He hasn't heard from Nix yet that the Neos are aware there's a mold in the station, but not of anything beyond that, so he probably thinks this squad is here specifically because his and Nix's mission is compromised. If he can't risk attacking them directly, he probably tries to move closer to the science station, because he knows he can't let them get there before Nix gets out, or she'll be trapped. Kaito has agility 2, and he's in Z-frame, which we decided gives a +1 bonus to stats, so he rolls right now as if he had agility 3. He's also a scoundrel, which gives him +1 die to stealth rolls, which I think applies here since he's trying to move towards the science station stealthily. He'll get to roll 4 d6s for the attempt. That's 3 successes, and the 6 explodes, but it doesn't yield another success, so he stays with 3. That's still enough to manage the moderately difficult task of getting close to the sun station without tripping the proximity alarms or auto-turret. Now he's in a good position to observe the Neo-Sapiens and intercept them if they come this way, and get Nyx out as soon as she comes back into view.
I think the Neo-Sapiens might begin to fan out, forming a semicircle around the station, trying to cover all possible exit points.
I think Kaito tries to stay hidden from view, watching the Neo-Sapiens move into their formation, trying to spot the weakest point where he can try to break through the line once Nyx comes out. He's probably very aware that in a semicircle, they all have crossfire with each other, and if he's carrying Nyx, she won't have any real armor to speak of. He's trying to plan a way to deal with these problems in the limited time he has.
Maybe one of the Neo-Sapiens is slightly out of sync with the others, or a bit too eager to prove themselves, causing them to make a mistake that Kaito could capitalize on.
Nice. As Kaito stares at the Neo-Sapiens taking position, he gets the sense that one of them is particularly unskilled and undisciplined, and decides when the time comes to move, he'll bolt in the direction of that one. It will be the easiest to slip past. And once he's outside the line, that one will definitely break formation and chase him, which will provide a shield against the fire from the others.
I'd imagine Kaito's E-frame is equipped with basic scanning capabilities, allowing him to pick up their encrypted transmissions.
Good point. He probably hears little snippets of their communications with each other, which is part of how he learns that one of the Neo-Sapiens is more of a loose cannon, and harder for the commander of the squad to keep in line.
I picture their comms being a mix of terse, clipped orders and frustrated remarks. The commander might be trying to rein in the loose cannon, saying things like, "Stay in formation," or "Focus on the objective," while the loose one responds with reckless bravado.
The scene ends with Kato's E-frame dropping lower into a crouched position, sheltered behind some rocks at one side of the sun station, watching the Neo-Sapiens and waiting for Nyx to reappear at the main airlock. He probably mutters something like, "Hurry up, partner, it's getting late."
I can almost hear Kaito's voice, low and urgent, as he waits for Nyx to emerge.
We got to Nyx, entering the dimly lit maintenance area and looking around. There are some flickering fluorescent lights overhead. She glimpses warning signs and labels indicating hazardous materials or area is restricted to authorized personnel. She doesn't immediately see Aaron. I imagine she calls out in a stage whisper.
Makes sense. Nyx wouldn't want to alert anyone else who might be lurking in the area. Does Aaron immediately respond? Or is there a brief pause before Nyx hears back?
I imagine there's a pause. Then Aaron steps into view, uncertain and nervous.
I think Aaron might ask a cautious question like, "How did you find me?" or "What do you want?" trying to gauge Nyx's intentions without revealing too much herself. Alternatively, Nyx might take the lead and try to reassure Aaron that she's there to help. Maybe saying something like, "I'm with Exo Fleet."
That's a perfect cliffhanger to end with. Kaito outside the sun station, watching Neo-Sapien E-frames take position, while Nyx makes contact with Aaron inside. If you're still watching, remember to leave a like on the video, and subscribe if you haven't yet, and want to catch the next episode when it drops.